Prime Minister Modi chaired a rather special meeting of the Union Cabinet at South Block today. What's so special about it? It's the last meeting of the Cabinet at the South Block at the British-era Secretariat building. The PMO now shifts to its new complex, which has been termed rather aptly as Seva Teerth. So the Cabinet held its final meeting in the South Block. That's the images on your screens there. This meeting happened at about 4 p.m. this evening. And now, from here, all business shifts over to the Seva Teerth, the new PMO. Remember that the building that you're seated in, South Block, which for long has been known as the power centre really in the heart of the national capital, was designed by British architect Herbert Baker in the early 1900s to meet the requirements of the British Raj. And so many decades, it's continued to be used. Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly spoken about the Macaulay mindset, about getting rid of the colonial mindset and all reminders of it. This is another step in that particular effort. I'll bring in Aishwarya Paliwal for more details on this. Aishwarya, good evening. We're expecting the Prime Minister to speak about, the symbolic moment of shifting from South Block to the Seva Teerth. But explain to us the significance of this move, why the government chose to do it, the naming of Seva Teerth as well.
Well, Akshita, let me just tell you, and let's just flip through history. Since 2014, we have seen how certain changes have taken place. Prime Minister Modi has been very, very clear. We need to get out of the colonial mindset. We need to tell the world that A, we have arrived, and B, you cannot take India lightly. And this is evident in everything that the government has been doing over the past 12 years. And this shift that we are seeing now, it is a fact that, if you look at our old buildings, there is a huge hangover of what Britishers used to do and how they used to run India. Now that mindset change has to come in, and that's the reason why we are seeing not just the change in the name, but also the way in which people have been working, the way in which ministers have been very, very clearly told by the Prime Minister, not just once, but many times. Let me tell you, I've spoken with so many leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and one thing that the Prime Minister has always focused upon is the fact that you are here to serve the people. You are not their rulers. You are here to do seva, and that's the reason why we are seeing the name change that has happened. Actually, did you remember the Kartavya Path, the name change that had happened? The opposition was gunning for Prime Minister, gunning for the BJP and saying, why are you changing these names? But Kartavya Path actually is telling you that it is your Kartavya to serve the people. They have given you the power, they have chosen you, they have faith in you. And that's the reason why we have seen since 2014 the name changes that are now taking place. And in this new building, the one thing that we can very clearly see is the fact that everyone is equal. And this actually will make sure that all the departments work together, work in tandem, and that's the reason why we are seeing this shift taking place. Actually, let me also very quickly tell you what will happen to the South Block and the North Block. They will be converted into the world's largest museum. That is the plan that BJP has ahead.
I was just going to ask you about that, Aishwarya, because there's so much of a conversation and chatter about what happens now to these buildings. Look, irrespective of whether, it reminds you of the colonial times or not, these have been etched in India's history. We can't deny that. And it's good to know, as Aishwarya points out, that the North Block and South Block in all likelihood will be converted to what will be the world's largest museum, which will be huge. So that part of history remains very much part of our story. It doesn't go anywhere, but just that what you're going to see along with the shifting of the PMO from South Block to the Seva Teerth is also an upgradation of sorts. Look, these are buildings that have stood the test of time. Yes, they've been there for decades together, but that also means that they're quite ancient in how they process and how they function. And so there's an effort to address that as well with the Seva Teerth that's been built, which the Prime Minister also unveiled. He unveiled the name. He's been seated there. He signed off some files as well earlier today, very symbolically ensuring that these were in fact files that will work for the benefit of women, for the benefit of youth, and as the government really says, also for vulnerable citizens. But Aishwarya, I'll request you to stay with me. We'll get details really about how exactly this came about to be, the formation of Seva Teerth, the idea. The key power centers of government is moving out of South and North Block for decades now. We've heard about the South Block, the North Block, ministries functioning out of here, the Prime Minister functioning out of here. No more. Prime Minister Modi's inaugurated Seva Teerth. So the PM will be here, as will the National Security Advisor's Office and the Cabinet Secretariat. Now this, along with Kartavya Bhavan 1 and 2, the future offices of key central ministries are more or less ready. So how did the Prime Minister kick things off at Seva Teerth? Those images are on your screens. The Prime Minister offered prayers to Lord Ganesha and then signed the first official documents, which the government says were documents that benefit youth, women and farmers. But the official inauguration will take place any time now, with the Prime Minister expected to speak. Now, there's a huge lot of symbolism involved in the fact that you're seeing the shifting from South Block to Seva Teerth. It aligns with the Prime Minister's vision of shedding colonial legacy and emphasizing on service-oriented governance. Now, that is essentially the messaging in this particular case. But let me also get you details about this particular building as well. It's part of course, the Central Vista project. It includes extremely modern workspaces and also has grand ceremonial rooms. The idea is to be able to also host dignitaries in some of these locations. PMO is located in South Block since independence, and so this is history that we're witnessing, that the PMO has shifted out of South Block. I'll bring in Aishwarya for more details on that. Aishwarya, just run us through also some of the features of what makes the Seva Teerth so unique. You know, I mentioned earlier about how some of these buildings, as historic as they are also ancient, and functioning out of them means that officials also work in, that kind of a mindset where they're stuck without any tech. Does that change with the Seva Teerth?
Well, definitely, one thing, Akshita, that we have all seen, when none of us knew what selfie was, it was Prime Minister Modi, who in fact was very well at it. So this is something that Prime Minister has been focusing on, making sure that the buildings are made in such a way, and Gujarat is a classic example of the way in which, new buildings have been built. The idea is to make sure that the important departments are together, because we have seen how, important notes at times get misplaced, or the information takes a lot of time from reaching one ministry to the other. So all those things are being done away with. If we speak about tech, then the latest tech is now being used. That is what the Prime Minister's focus was, also making sure that all the important ministries, they work in tandem, because, let's look at how important it is to make sure that all the ministries are working together, because the idea now of the government and of Prime Minister is to make sure that we move from being a developing nation to being a developed nation by 2047. Now, that can happen when the policies are in place, and more important than the policy is the implementation of those policies. So the government, very, very clear that you need to bring everything together so that time and speed is something that is being looked at. And in case there is something that needs urgent attention, all those things can be done at. And if we also speak about the tech, then these buildings are equipped with the latest technology, which will serve India at least for the next 50 years. So that is something that the government had in mind. And also, obviously, doing away with the colonial past, that's something that the government has been focusing on over the past 10 years.